It is so great to be along with you today. I am Grant Stinchfield. I want to talk about the radical left and what the radical left is doing out there when it comes to these riots all across America. It is about as bad as it gets. I can tell you that much. And when I tell you bad, I mean real bad, because here's what the left is doing. The left right now wants a confrontation between National Guard and the rioters, between federal agents and the rioters. They want a deadly confrontation. Think about where Democrats are today. Everything in their power is going wrong. Every policy they have made is going wrong. The American people turning against the Democrat Party as they side with President Trump on his moves to make America great again, specifically his moves on the border, specifically his moves on rounding up illegal alien criminals and sending them back home. The Democrats see this. The only way they regain power is by some kind of wild bloodbath between National Guard federal agents and these rioters. That's what they're after. So we've got to play this very, very carefully. Now, I'm going to play some clips of these radical leftists. We'll go through it all. And they basically explain their little secret plot here. They tell you out in the open, you just have to decipher their little code words. And so we're going to do that today on the program. Before we do, folks, I want to tell you about my friends over at Patriot Protect. Patriot Protect is getting it done for people to keep your private and personal information safe. You know, this DeepSeek website, they went out and they gathered, scooped up all kinds of personal information. It's a Chinese CCP-based company that has information on Americans, millions upon millions of Americans, upwards of 60 million. The chance that your information has been leaked on there is very, very good. Well, what Patriot Protect does, it goes and searches the dark web. It will remove your personal information from the dark web. It has ties to over 100 data brokers. They search the data broker sites, remove your information from them. So if you're getting these weird text messages, weird emails, this is where it's coming from. Your information has been hacked. Patriot-Protect.com can help you get your life back. Patriot-Protect.com/Grant. Make sure /Grant. Patriot-Protect.com/Grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 15% off, and you will finally have your personal information protected. You become a victim of identity theft, forget it. It's game over. Patriot-Protect.com/Grant. Get that personal information off of the dark web and the internet. Patriot Protect can help you. Use that promo code GRANT for 15% off. I signed up, by the way, folks, and it's doing great. With that, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, it is a pleasure to be along with you today as we go through all these riots. You know, I had some vacation time, and I'm watching this unfold. And I'm in Aspen, Colorado, and I'm talking to people, you know, there at the hotel, at restaurants, some of them from California. The people I met from California, not one of them said they were upset with the National Guard coming in. And these were not political folks. Quite frankly, I don't even know if they were Democrats or Republicans. But they're watching their city literally burn. They're watching these goons loot, steal, destroy, light things on fire, attack police officers with no consequences. Then we watch this rioting and looting spread from one city to the other because these blue cities take the cues from Los Angeles. And the reason why they take the cues is because people like Karen Bass, who would rather give favor to illegal aliens than she would give favor to law-abiding citizens who just want to be safe in their community. Here's Karen Bass.
A week ago, everything was peaceful in the city of Los Angeles and in all of the representatives behind me in their cities as well. Things began to be difficult on Friday when raids took place, and it's important that I begin there because that is the cause of the problems that have happened in the city of Los Angeles and other cities. This was provoked by the White House The reason why, we don't know.
Let me give you a clue into how you tell the difference between a Democrat and a Republican. A Republican takes personal responsibility for their actions. A Republican holds criminals accountable for their actions. Nobody provokes you into robbing a convenience store. Nobody provokes you into throwing cinder blocks at police officers. But this is what Karen Bass is offering up, that people, the criminals, should just wipe their hands free of any accountability because they didn't like the fact that President Trump was enforcing the law. And no matter what you say about the ICE raids, you can be for them, you can be against them. What you can't do is argue the fact that they're literally arresting criminals. The moment you crossed into the United States without papers, you became a criminal. So nobody can say that they're not enforcing, just simply enforcing the law. They're going somehow outside the bounds. That's just not the case. The case is this is about enforcing the rule of law. Now, you want to throw cinder blocks at police officers? Here's where Los Angeles made their first mistake of many. Their first mistake started a long time ago, coddling criminals and not doing anything. That goes to the first mistake the day the riot started happening. The moment the first rock is thrown, police need to spring into action and start arresting people. It instantly squashes it. You know, they put this curfew in place in L.A. and it helped. Yeah, they're still out there protesting, but this curfew helped. On that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're throwing rocks. You're putting people in danger. You're graffitiing something. You're intimidating people with weapons, by the way, and I think cinder blocks are weapons. Those people need to be arrested instantly. L.A. didn't do that. So again, you have this idea that nobody is responsible for their actions. All of these goons, these Antifa lunatics, were just looking for an excuse to loot and steal. They don't have any care about the illegal aliens in this country. All they are looking for is an excuse to lie, cheat, steal, create violence and chaos in America. And so you get the goons taking the streets to capitalize on it. And in the end, you have some very strong forces putting money up in order to organize these protests, these riots, in order to what? Create a deadly clash between federal law enforcement, the National Guard, and these rioters. That's what they want. They want a bloodbath, because once they get the bloodbath, then they can go after President Trump. This is the assistant mayor in Ventura. What an out-of-control loon this guy is.
I'm Doug Halter, Deputy Mayor of the City of Ventura, and this is absolutely unconscionable what's going on. I had never thought in my life that I would be seeing this sort of disruption and this sort of terrorism attack on our citizens, on our community, on our residents, our friends, our family, our neighbors.
Did he just say terrorism on behalf of the National Guard coming in to try to keep federal agents safe, our federal buildings safe, and quite frankly, the citizens around them safe? That's terrorism? What domestic terrorism looks like to me is when you have a Mexican flag and you're circling a car that has been lit on fire. That's domestic terrorism.
Our workers, our employers, everything that impacts one part of our community impacts all of us. And to see this coming from our own country, the country that I was raised by my Italian grandparents to love and be so proud of, and to see this happen, it's just unconscionable.
You know what, you little loser? Your Italian grandparents were probably just like my Italian grandparents that came in through Ellis Island, and they did it the right way, and they checked in there, and then they went on about their business, and they started businesses, and they did their thing. They didn't go out there pushing fentanyl, sex trafficking, running minors. I mean, where are the kids that have disappeared? Where are they? I give ICE and U.S. Customs and Border Protection an A+ when it comes to enforcement and rounding up criminals. I give them a C- when it comes to finding the children that are missing. But you're never going to hear Democrats talk about that. They'd rather have Antifa do their thing.
This has got to stop. We've been asking for comprehensive immigration reform for at least 30 years. Now, if he really wants to be a hero, get on it and get it done. and leave our people alone, because we will fight and we defend them. They're part of our community. They will always be a part of our community.
So what does that mean, you'll fight? These are the little code words I'm talking about, folks. These are the code words where say he's going to fight, he's going to step up, he's going to go after them. This is what they want. They want a bloodbath. We've got to make sure we don't give it to them. But here's the thing. You can't put law enforcement and our National Guardsmen in danger. Right now, our National Guardsmen that are going out onto the streets are carrying ammunition, but their firearms aren't loaded. A firearm not loaded doesn't do you any good. So what happens when someone starts throwing cinder blocks at you? I'm sure they're not allowed to use their firearms. And I'm not saying that we should go killing all those people. But what I am saying is you better bum rush anybody throwing cinder blocks, and you get them to the ground, you put them in handcuffs, and you arrest them. Now, what happens if someone starts shooting at our National Guard members? I don't actually put that beyond the realm of possibility. You can go all the way back to the Revolutionary War, and that shot heard round the world. Could you imagine if they set up a situation like that? To this day, we still don't know who fired that first shot, going back to the Revolutionary War. They could set up the same scenario in Los Angeles, the same scenario in Seattle, the same scenario in Atlanta. Shot heard around the world. Next thing you know, President Trump's the big oppressor, and they've rallied their base again because their politics are not working, and we know that their politics are not working. I'm going to play a response from President Trump. He did talk about this, and so it's important that we hear from him. Before we do, folks, I want to tell you about my friends over at Get20Now.com. That's Get20Now.com. This is about combining Bitcoin mining with data centers and the technology surrounding these data centers, that my friends at NFN8 can mine cryptocurrency cheaper than anybody else out there. This allows them to pay you upwards of 20%, depending on the deal you make, up to 20% annualized interest on your investment. I made a sizable investment with them. This money is paid out monthly. They've never missed a payment to me. Everything they've said to me, they have lived up to their promises. They were easy to work with. Everything was smooth as silk. And I'm loving this deal because it's mailbox money coming in to my account every month. Now, the technology they're using is unbelievable to cool these machines. They've got data centers in states where they can buy the electricity very cheap, including Texas, where the regulatory environment is a positive to mine cryptocurrency. I want you to get with these folks. If you like the idea of 20% on your investment paid monthly, annualized interest paid monthly, go to Get20Now.com. That's Get20Now.com. My buddy Corey will give you a call. Answer the call. Call him back if he leaves a message. It's been a very popular investment, only offered here on Stinchfield. Get20Now.com. That's Get20Now.com. All right. President Trump, he's standing firm. This is what you get with a decisive leader, folks. This is it.
Mr. President, these protests obviously started in reaction to these large-scale ICE operations in Los Angeles. Should people expect to see similar operations in the rest of the country?
Yeah.
And will similar protests see similar response?
As you know, we're moving murderers out of our country that were put here by Biden or the auto pen. The auto pen really did. I mean, the people, whether it's Lisa Monaco or whoever operated the auto pen, these are criminals. The people are criminals that allowed these criminals into our country. And I don't think that Biden knew what the hell he was doing. I don't think he even knew about it. But when they opened up our borders for the whole world to come in, yeah, we're going to get them out. We're getting them out. We're starting to get acknowledgement from the courts that, you know, as a system. They come in without courts and they go out. They want trials and everything else. I think that's starting to work out now. Judges are starting to see what a terrible situation it is. Many of those people that you saw on television last night are criminals that were allowed into our country by Biden, and they want to stay, and we don't want them. And they come from jails, and they come from mental institutions, and they come from all over the world, not just South America. And we're not going to let them stay. And this is the first, perhaps, of many, or perhaps, if we didn't attack this one very strongly, you'd have them all over the country. But I can inform the rest of the country that when they do it, if they do it, they're going to be met with equal or greater force than we met right here. We did a great job. The people, you, Christy, and Tom Homan, and all
of them. doing a fabulous job. And so that's what I mean by standing firm. You don't bow in the wake of these radical lunatics. You don't bow in the wake of Maxine Waters saying she doesn't see anything here. I mean, I'll play that clip because that needs to be played over and over and over again. And the problem is what's happened now is these Antifa goons, the chaos creators, the anarchists in America, this is just their excuse. So they're taking it on the street. And where are they taking these riots to? Blue cities, not red cities, blue cities. Why? Because the police stand down. Karen Bass ordering her cops to stand down for the first 3 days was an outrage. Like I said, they needed to arrest those people the moment the first rock was thrown. But these other cities don't take the cue. This is the police chief in Seattle. Now, they are starting to riot in Seattle again. I'm sure no surprise.
As I watch the actions taken by federal law enforcement in California and along the West Coast, I am reminded of why I became a police officer. It is my job to support the rights of our community. Let me be clear. The Seattle Police Department does not engage in immigration enforcement activities. We do not inquire into or collect information about an individual's immigration or citizenship status.
That's because you're a sanctuary city. And so these criminals, illegal aliens specifically, know that they flood sanctuary cities. Now, if you arrest somebody, you know you've broken a federal law if you snuck into the country. Why aren't you asking citizenship questions? Why not? What if you're wanted by the feds for something very big? What if you're wanted for sex trafficking, murder, child trafficking, drug dealing? But the Seattle police aren't going to ask those questions because they want to coddle the criminal.
Unless it is directly connected to a state or local criminal investigation. This is, of course, the sole responsibility of the federal government. My responsibility is the safety and security of the people of Seattle. We adhere to Washington state law, which limits our involvement with federal immigration authorities for enforcement purposes. Here in Seattle, no one should be afraid of contacting local law enforcement to report a crime, ask for help, or cooperate with an investigation. Our officers are here to serve everyone regardless of their immigration status.
So that's the police chief in Seattle. What do you mean you're entitled to anything regardless of your immigration status? That's just not true. Your immigration status has a lot to do with what rights you get in the United States. Now, we are all entitled to inalienable rights, to free speech, right? The right to protest, all of these things you're allowed, but you aren't given the right to certain court appearances. If you come into the country illegally, you don't get to argue that. You get deported. Fill out your paperwork. It's that simple if you're here illegally. Now, the question has been raised about whether or not these protests are protests. I call them riots, is what they are. Whether or not these riots are paid for and highly organized. They have to be. I saw this dude on an Instagram post, and he basically blows the whistle on groups paying up to $150 a day for rioters to show up.
When I was out in Los Angeles protesting the ICE deportations for the past few days, besides the fact that I got paid $150 to do so per day, I kept seeing signs everywhere that this was being funded by somebody much higher than the person that I had met. For instance, they would give us certain streets or certain targets to go to, and on those streets, there would be pallets of things that could cause destruction to the community. I am not joking. For instance, you turn a corner, boom, there's a pallet of bricks. Oh, that's convenient. Let's destroy the community. And y'all know me, I'm a good guy, but I truly do not care that much about the ICE deportations. I just wanted that $150 a day. But I got to thinking, man, whoever is funding this must really hate this country. So as time goes on while we're protesting and things evolve, they evolve in a lot more violent nature. For instance, instead of there being a pallet of bricks on the target neighborhood or target street that we are protesting on, it'll be a pallet of flammable objects. So it was at that moment when I saw that pallet of Molotov cocktails sitting on the ground, I thought, man, should I really be doing this? Like, this is bad news. This is going to get way worse. Now, I'm not from Los Angeles or live in Los Angeles, so I don't really care about destroying that community, but I'm American after all. Like, this is not good. Moral to the story is there are certain people in our government that wants us to go burn the local police station down, but in actuality, the corruption's at a much higher level.
Well, he's right. So here's the question. When I watch that, do I believe him or is he just looking to go viral? I believe the stories he lays out are very true. I'm not sure he was actually involved. He may be trying to go viral. Either way, this is evidence that needs to be investigated. It's clear the pallets had been put around cities in strategic places. It's clear that video of the, quote, bionic masks, the face shields, pull up in a pickup truck with dozens of them in there, handed out to rioters. It's clear that happened. It's clear that you have the Walmart heiress organizing this No Kings protest. All of that, very, very clear. So this leads me back to when he says there are people in government who want this chaos. That's people, specifically Democrats like Maxine Waters.
And even those who were out of step with what we are advocating, peaceful protest, did not create any violence. Nobody was shot. Nobody was killed. Get it in your head.
So I'm not getting in my head when I'm watching people create violence and engage in violence. Now, nobody shot, nobody killed. That's your definition of violence? So unless someone's murdered, it's not violent. This is typical from a very violent Democrat like Maxine Waters to get up in their faces, let them know you're here. Do not let them rest. She's a violent woman. And she tried to tempt National Guard members into shooting her.
And so when martial law is called, what are you going to say? I missed the point. Don't miss the point, you all. Don't think that somehow, because they called out the National Guard, there was violence. There was no violence. I was on the street. I know. And I went from downtown detention back out into the community, talking to people what happened in Paramount, what happened in Compton, what happened in Inglewood. So, first of all, get it straight. And don't just rely on what you're being told or the few incidents that you saw.
So there you go. That's Maxine Waters lying to your face about what reality really is. And to me, it's disgusting because this is what you had. You have people like Karen Bass, people like Maxine Waters, people like Gavin Newsom, literally lying to the American people about all of this. And so when I look at that and I see these liars, I say, you know what? We got to call them out. We got to make sure that President Trump keeps doing his job with ICE agents and law enforcement going out in the streets, picking up these people and doing the right thing. Here's what John Kennedy, the senator from Louisiana, had to say about Maxine Waters.
All of this is why the aliens won't talk to us. I see what you see, what the American people see. I mean, no disrespect to Congresswoman Waters, but somebody needs to tell her that the voices in her head are not real. Point two, I've listened to so many of my colleagues and members of the media say that these are mostly peaceful protests. That's like saying that Harvey Weinstein is mostly a feminist because he didn't rape every woman who came into his office. He only raped some of them. Number three, in terms of Governor Newsom, he's flip-flopped a lot, Sean, on issues, but the governor's been very consistent on one thing: his antipathy toward the lives and feelings of ordinary Americans, including public safety. Governor Newsom his record shows this. He's the dictionary definition of weenie. He thinks cops are a bigger problem than criminals. He thinks if a cop has to shoot a criminal, it's automatically and always a cop's fault. But if a criminal shoots a cop, it's automatically and always the gun's fault. Here's a tip. Cops will leave you alone unless you do illegal stuff. That's what we're seeing in California.
So, again, he just spelled out what we already know. And here we are. We got to talk about this ad nauseum as this violence spreads across the country in a way that it, quite frankly, should not be spreading. But you have the mainstream media that literally cuts away when people start to tell the truth. Yes, the mainstream media cuts away when people start to tell the truth. If you don't believe me, I want you to watch this because this is about as bad as it gets. This is CNN. You've got an LA official talking about the curfew that's going to be put in place. And as soon as she starts telling the truth about what's happening, CNN cuts away.
Hurting. I am deeply proud that downtown has always been the place where Angelenos from all over the city gather to peacefully protest. I support the right to demonstrate, and the mayor and I know that right is sacred, and at times it's necessary, but we must also face what's happening right now. When these peaceful rallies end and the protesters head home, another element moves in. Opportunists who come in under the cover of a peaceful protest to ravage and destroy. They are ruining local small businesses, smashing storefronts, and threatening the safety of the very community that...
All right, we were listening to the Los Angeles mayor and the Los Angeles police commissioner announcing a curfew.
They literally cut away from her as she says the lawlessness will not be tolerated. So that's the media playing a role in letting the chaos evolve. Because if people don't know that even in a city like LA, they're going to start making arrests, well, then they'll still be out there committing the chaos. CNN playing a role in all of this. Is anybody surprised? Shouldn't be. Shouldn't be surprised at all, folks. At all. To me, quite frankly, it's disgusting. Hey, you know about my friends over at Energized Health. EnergizedHealth.com is where I want you to go. This is about intercellular hydration, getting hydrated at a cellular level. I'm in some of the best shape of my life thanks to the Energized Health protocol. I went on it, I don't know, over 6 months ago. In the first 2 weeks, I lost 15 pounds. Why? Because I started following the protocol, getting my cells hydrated at a cellular level. It doesn't mean just pounding water. There is a science behind this. And here's the key. It's super simple. So what you eat, change it around a little bit. There's a master class on this, by the way, you can take at Energized Health. How you work out, you don't kill yourself. Change it around a little bit. Master class at EnergizedHealth.com. And lo and behold, you start this process of getting hydrated at a cellular level, miracles happen. My cholesterol was down. My blood pressure was down. My testosterone went up, if you could believe it. I was feeling the best I've ever felt in my life. EnergizedHealth.com. They can help you. EnergizedHealth.com. Pay them a visit. Take the free masterclass as well. It is most certainly worth it. Today, we had a guy by the name of Alex Michelson on the program, on the morning show. Alex is his name. Alex Michelson. I always get his first name mixed up. But Alex Michelson is an anchor at Fox 11 in L.A. And it's an interesting conversation to talk to somebody in the mainstream media about what's going on. Let me play this clip for you.
And there's been so much. So you were overseas, actually. You were in Vienna, right? Is that right?
I was in Vienna last week.
Week. And so you're back, and then you come back to, some riots here in Los Angeles. So before we jump into what's going to be on The Issue Is this Friday, let's talk about what you have seen this week. What are your big takeaways? You had, and congratulations, the first interview with Gavin Newsom. I feel like there's been a lot of false information that's just flying around out there. But what are you taking away from all of this?
Which ones do you want to take first in terms of
your choice. You know what? You start wherever you like. There's so much to cover.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been interesting. I agree with Grant, who said in the last block that this has been a big political win for President Trump and for Governor Newsom. Both of them seem to be really leaning in. And for Newsom, who wants to get the Democratic base behind him and a base that's largely anti-Trump, it seems to be working for that goal. I think the searches of him online are up 9,700%.
Wow.
He's raised a lot of money. He's fundraising on this every day. His following on social media has gone way up. So for him, I mean, I haven't seen him this aggressive on an issue in a long time. He sees this as a win. Trump obviously sees it as a win to be able to talk about the biggest, most important issue for him, immigration, that people support him the most on. He gets to look strong and decisive in what he's doing to his base. The problem is, what about all the people in downtown LA who for days kind of, were in the middle of all this mess? I mean, it was so frustrating to see the lawlessness that was allowed in the streets of Southern California for several days. It's interesting that curfew has really worked. It's something some of us thought maybe should have been put in place several days beforehand. And it has been effective. This idea that most of the problems have been in a small area. And when you stop people from getting into that area late at night, oh my God, look, it actually worked. And so far, we have not seen all those anarchists and criminals who take advantage of almost every single protest situation to cause havoc, have not seemed to move to other areas, at least not yet.
So, Michelson, I want to give you kudos because I was in Aspen, Colorado, and I saw your tweet that had the video. Well, first I think it was the tweet without the video, and then later we got the video from your station, filming the truck pulling up and those face shields, the masks being taken out. And your line was so important to me because it came from a member of the mainstream media. And I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was something to the effect of who's paying for this or who's organizing this. Nobody in the mainstream media asked that question. I think we've even talked about that this is a highly organized event. How do you get brick pallets spread throughout the city, ready to be used, without having somebody organize that? And you asked the question, and I'm going to tell you, that went viral. It deserved to go viral, and I just want to say thank you for that. Does anybody at the station say, what are you doing? Are they angry with you for pointing that out?
No. And my station, credit to our management, doesn't really give me a hard time about what I say, good or bad. I don't know if they're always watching, but so be it.
Sometimes it's better when they don't,
Well, they let you come on this program, and there's other stations that do not let talent come on this program.
Amount of latitude, which I appreciate. Yeah, for people that may not have seen that, it's basically what happened was we're live on the air. We've got a reporter there in downtown, and then we see behind him this truck pulls up, and all these people start going over to it, and they're throwing boxes out at people. And at some point, I think one of my colleagues initially thought, is this food? And then I look at it, I'm like, this isn't food. And you're opening up the boxes and you see these shields, these bionic shields that are not that cheap, that are being handed out like candy. And so clearly this is organized, and clearly this is paid for somebody. They weren't exactly like giving them money for these face shields. And so this was a strategy of we are getting ready to essentially be ready for a face-off with police. Now, the charitable argument for them is they feel like the police goes too far, so they want to protect themselves. The argument against that is if you're in a situation where the police are going that far, maybe it's time to get out of the area. But they want to fight back. And so then that person was identified, and there was like looks into who are these people because people looked at the video. But that was an interesting moment. And there was another moment that went viral as well when there were folks on the streets of downtown late at night, all these cops around, and people are smashing with a hammer the sidewalk to create rocks that they can throw at law enforcement, and then a block away lighting cars on fire. And there's a long line of law enforcement just standing and watching all that. And I I was outraged watching that, thinking, why can't they do something to stop this now, to send a message to everybody? Because the image that was broadcast not only to Southern California but around the world was essentially lawlessness with no consequences, and that seems like open season for criminals when they watch that happen.
You know, and I think that's why some people have been supportive, and including law enforcement. If you ask them behind the scenes, they're supportive of the National Guard being in town just to give extra heft and protection and just extra bodies against all of this. What are you hearing about stand down orders? Because I have heard from people who are in the department who have said that the reason that they are taking all of this is that really the ideology of the department under McDonnell, not that he's maybe even the one. I think he's looked like a hostage victim to me. I'll say it, you don't have to this week. But Karen Bass, I think, is given this order where we don't want to look aggressive. We don't want to scare people. Well, what you're doing is creating such a bad situation now that you have to clean up more of a mess. And if you would have just allowed police to enforce, and this goes not just in this event, but the last few weeks, we saw a downtown takeover. We saw the takeover, the 101 freeway. The police are just standing there.
It seems, though, that there was a change in policy
the last few days.
Tuesday night at 6 o'clock when Mayor Bass came out and announced the curfew. And we've seen a very different LAPD in the streets since then. They've been aggressive in stopping stuff early and not letting things go. So that may have been an order from Mayor Bass. I know that she was frustrated by some of the images that she saw on our air as well. Maybe it took too long to get there. I hope that we're now there, and that will be the approach going forward. But, big test on Saturday. There's going to be these protests for No King's Day, with President Trump honoring the military and his own birthday in Washington. And then there's going to be protests.
I have to just jump in. You know how much I love you. It's not for it's 250 years of the military, and it was planned before he was president. Yes, he amped it up a little bit, but I know a lot of people are going to say he's throwing himself a birthday parade like President Xi.
Please, it was planned before his birthday, before he was even elected into office.
Okay, important correction there. I stand corrected. So, but because of that, there's going to be a bunch of protests in the streets, and it's going to be a big test in terms of the military here potentially, and we'll see what role they have. But we have this big court hearing today that's going to be at 1:30 to determine the role of the military and the role of the National Guard going forward here.
Just the sheer fact that the court's going to take this up is an outrage because they're getting in the way of clearly the commander in chief. But that's for another segment. I won't even have you comment on this. I'm going to ask you maybe a favor. Clearly, politics have gotten in the way of how they enforce the law. We admit there's a change that happened. It's not just because they had some all of a sudden epiphany that we're going to enforce the law. They realize they're losing the argument when they see their city being burned down. I think the mainstream media, look, we can spout about this. Karen Bass isn't going to care what Grant and Jen say. They will care what you guys say. And if you ask them directly, is politics playing a role in how you enforce the law? Sir.
I mean, of course she's going to say, what is she going to say? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, she's going to say,
well,
she's going to
but
say
remember,
no, but
you're not talking to her. You're talking to your viewers.
Right.
You asking the question is the viewers hearing it.
Right. And I think and another way to phrase it as well is what prompted the dramatic change in policy?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And is that something that going forward in similar situations, what's the key lesson that you learned from this? And do you admit that it was a little too late on the curfew? Hindsight being 2020, trying to do the best you can, but going forward now is the lesson learned that we got to go there faster.
If you ask, we're out of time, but if you ask for a one-on-one interview with her now, she'd say no, wouldn't she?
I don't know. I mean, it's possible. And actually, she may be joining. I'm hosting TMZ Live, and there's some talk from her team that she may be joining me on there in the next couple of days.
That's been really cool, by the way, to see you doing TMZ. I love that. What a switch of gears.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So her team expressed some interest, so it might happen. Might even happen today.
All right, quickly, because we are so late, but I want you to be able to talk about this weekend because the issue is 10:30 Friday night all throughout the weekend on Channel 11, and you are going to be kind of tracking your trip that you took. Arnold Schwarzenegger had you in. Tell us about that real quick.
Yeah, we went to Austria with him for this global conference, but we also...
Look, Michelson is a good reporter. You can watch him on Fox out in L.A. He does a decent job. Is he a big-time conservative? No. but he does a decent job, and he asks politicians tough questions, which is why we have him on the radio program out there. Not a lot of mainstream media members are doing that, specifically in L.A., which is why kudos to him. So with that, folks, I want to tell you about my friends over at Patriot Mobile. PatriotMobile.com/Grant is where I want you to go. I use Patriot Mobile service for my iPhone here. And here's the thing. I'm on the one plan. One phone, two lines. Two lines from two different networks. So no matter what city I go into, I got a cell phone signal because I'm on AT&T and Verizon service on here. Patriot Mobile can do that for you, but even better, I'm not paying those companies that are engaged in DEI and Planned Parenthood and all these crazy things they donate to. Patriot Mobile is on the side of conservatives, whether it's Second Amendment issues, whether it's right to life issues, whether it's supporting conservative talkers who can get the message out. This is what Patriot Mobile brings to the table. It's a parallel economy. I like supporting companies that believe in the things that we believe in. That's what Patriot Mobile is about. It's America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. Use the promo code Grant for a free month's service. And you can be proud when you make that switch. I tell people I'm on Patriot Mobile, just the name alone. They know exactly why I'm there. And I say it with a smile. And I want you to as well. You've heard me pitch them for a long time. If you're not switched yet, you got to ask yourself, why not? PatriotMobile.com/Grant. Pay them a visit today. All right, so these rioters are not really getting anywhere with anything. One of the reasons they're not getting anywhere with anything is because they're not making friends. I can tell you that much. This is a woman who's basically stuck in traffic, trying to get to her job, and the protesters are stopping her. Now, you tell me if this protest is effective to get the will of the people on your side.
Look at this. That's what happens to my kids. But you can if you could just move out the way.
Just look at the dude with the man bun and the liberal white woman. These liberals are the reason for all our problems in America. Here you have a young lady, she appears to be black, that just wants to go to work, and they wonder why minorities are coming to the Republican Party. Because of idiots like this that are blocking traffic in the name of some illegal alien. They have no idea who it is. An illegal alien, by the way, if Tom Homan's coming after you, you're probably a drug dealer, sex trafficker, or something else heinous and horrible.
How is this a peaceful protest if there's nothing to do? No, it's not.
How do y'all as white people feel about stopping a black woman from going to work?
Oh, no, not work. I care so much.
So you don't care about stopping black people from going to work?
Look at this line that you guys are causing. I'm not causing no problems. I'm not trying to. We're just trying to leave.
Oh, remember, they're supposed to be the big champion of minorities. What a great question by the young lady behind the camera. How do you feel about stopping a black woman from going to work? And his comment was, oh, work. Well, which is it? If it was a Black Lives Matter protest, you'd be letting the black lady through. But it's not. So they're just there. They're posers is what they are. Posers. Now, Patrick Bet-David of the PBD podcast went on with Jesse Waters. And this is what he had to say.
They're losing their minds. It's great to be on with you here. They're losing their minds. But here's the thing. When you look at Gavin Newsom, it's very interesting how opportunistic he is and what his format is. Blame, deflect, get emotional, play politics, spin a little bit. The guy is such a gifted spinner. Here's a challenge that Californians have to be thinking about. California, this is the closest it's ever been to being red. This is the closest California has ever been to being a red state in a long time. So now, a lot of the people that voted for Trump, the independents, the libertarians, and the conservatives in California that voted for Trump, they want to see changes in California. Are you going to fall for this tactic? He's separating families and their kids and all this other stuff. He's doing all this other stuff. It's going to be interesting watching how California handles this, because if they succeed in getting everybody else emotional, we know what game they're playing. June 14th is President Trump's 79th birthday, 250-year army. You got Flag Day. You got all this stuff that they're doing with America. They don't want to see any of these victories taking place. Axios article came out talking about 1,500 protests they're already planning in 50 states, funded by 100 progressive organizations, a lot of different NGOs. One of the Walton billionaires, Christy Walton, name was mentioned in New York Times. This is a $19, $20 billion type of person. A lot of this money, you hear Soros, all these other things that they're doing. They're planning this. And you know what they're looking for? I hate to say this. They're looking for their next George Floyd. That is all they need. They need one person. They need one massive crisis. They have no policies. They have no good ideas. I've yet to see. I went on ChatGPT. I said, can you tell me what solutions Mayor Bass and Gavin Newsom have given to all these protesting? There is no solutions. It's meetings. It's suing Trump. Zero solutions. They have no ideas. They will lose miserably, but it's going to work on a small percentage of the population.
Well, that is exactly why they're doing this. He reiterates exactly what I've said. They want the National Guard bloodbath. That's what they're looking for, folks. They want a bloodbath beyond belief. And that will give them the oppression. That will give them the dictator, President Trump. And it goes back to, he mentioned it, this big birthday party. It's not a birthday party for President Trump. They're literally celebrating Flag Day, the Army, and it was planned before President Trump even took office. And the media wants you to think that it's some kind of Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, military members marching with their heels up in the air. Come on. It's fake news. And so fake news is, of course, what we're up against. But there is good news because things appear to be changing. Listen to this.
Start off on the fact that immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, foreign-born voters have gone tremendously to the right on this issue in 2024 and 2025 versus where they were in 2020. Closest to or trust more in immigration. You go back to 2020. Democrats, get this, held a 32-point lead on this issue. Immigrant voters were in the Democratic camp. Jump forward to 2024, 2025. Look at that shift, a 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group that I could find. The group of voters who became more hawkish on immigration were, in fact, immigrants themselves, immigrants who are registered to vote in this country.
So that's on that issue.
So there you have it, a 40-point swing on the issue of immigration because of immigrants who also realize when you come here the right way, you expect other people to do it the same way. You don't cut the line. And you certainly don't cut the line when you're an evildoer. And that's what we have many of here in America, evildoers, including many on the left. These Democrats are evildoers. They really, really are. Before I let you go, folks, let me tell you about my friends over at the Wellness Company, twc.health/grant. These are the kits I want you to get. Every family should have one of these kits. It is imperative. There is amoxicillin in here. There's a Z-Pack in here. There is ivermectin in here, all made out to you. A doctor will call you, send you these prescriptions straight to your house. The other thing you got to think about is the parasite cleanse. You're looking at millions of Americans with parasites. If you have pets, you most likely have parasites. Parasites now, people believe, cause cancer. Parasites now, people believe, cause brain fog. All kinds of medical issues. You get on this parasite cleanse, poof, the medical issues go away. This is the gold standard in parasite cleanses, by the way. I want you to go to twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT for 10% off and get that parasite cleanse, get it into your body and get them going. I've already started mine. I can already start to feel the difference of the way I feel. And I believe parasites were a problem with me. And I think they are with many, many Americans. twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT. All right, folks, that is going to do it for us. I so appreciate you watching. I'm Grant Stinchfield. Stinchfield's Army rolls. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.